Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trilokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vedya Dravinam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Jai Guru. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So where are we in our scripture? Aditi, are you there?
Yep, I'm here. We are on verse 43.
All right. Will you help us out, please?
Yep. Chaitanya Sayaka Rupa Dvabhato. Wait. Chaitanya Sayaka Rupa Do yukto na kahirchita jivatvam cha mrishakeyam rajjo sarpa graho yatha. Because the consciousness is one everywhere, it is improper to attribute distinctions in it at any time. The sense of jiva is to be understood as a delusion, even as the idea of a snake in a rope.
Yes. So here Shankara uses his most frequent example, snake and the rope. So let's review the story. The story is there's a king and he's taking a bath and he's fat. And he's smoked some ganja before he took his bath. So he's a little stoned. And because he's fat, the water has overflowed onto the floor of his chamber. So he's finished with his bath. He gets out of the bath and he steps down and he steps on a snake. And he stops. He's paralyzed in fear. And he says, "Oh, I've stepped on a snake. I'm a goner." And the attendants, the servants, they're saying, "No, Your Majesty, please look down." "No, no, no, I'm too scared to look down." Please look down, Your Majesty. We don't want to contradict you, but please inquire. So finally he looks down and he sees, in fact, it is a wet length of rope. So what we have here is technically what we call adhyasa, which means superimposition. Superimposition takes place when the substratum of something is not apprehended. and then we superimpose upon it some imagined thing. Then we react to the imagined thing. We can use a present time worldly example. The actual vote count in Mariposa County was not available for apprehension. So conservatives then spread the misapprehension. Oh, the vote's been stolen. Then people get quite upset. They're not evil or bad, they're just quite upset because they believe something that is not true. We can use all sorts of worldly examples where the substratum is not apprehended, and then we superimpose something imagined. So the thing to be very aware of, in Shankara's example of the snake and the rope, where is the snake? Is it on the floor of the king's palace? No, it's in his mind. So here, what we're saying is consciousness is everywhere. And most importantly here, consciousness is you. But because of spiritual ignorance, I have the non-apprehension of that. Now, this is a very interesting point. We both have the non-apprehension of it, and yet we always experience it. What I like to say is, if I were to go down on Grand Avenue and there's a homeless person sleeping in the bus stop, how are you doing today? Oh, miserable, you got any money? No, not today. Then if he were able to converse with me, I would say, by the way, do you exist? Of course I exist. What's your existence? Oh, my existence is terrible. I'm homeless, have no money, it's cold. Do you know that you're homeless and that you're unhappy and cold? Oh, yeah. So the truth is, he does not lack the direct experience of his self. I am, I know, but in his mind, he superimposes upon the self the qualities of the not self. The other best way to understand this is to go to the dream state. The first thing that happens prior to dreaming is you go to sleep. Sleep can be defined as the non-apprehension of myself as the waker. There I am, safe in my bed. Then I imagine, oh, I'm out on San Francisco Bay in a sailboat, having a good time. Then a storm comes up and the boat is overcome and it starts to sing, oh, I'm drowning. And I wake up. So the dream body and the dream ego that was identified with it, the dream boat, the dream storm, the dream water, all of it was imagined. But I did not know that it was imagination when I was dreaming. Non-apprehension, technical term is Varana Shakti. Subsequent misapprehension, Vikshepa Shakti. The phenomenon of adhyasa, superimposition. What Shankara is saying here is, that's my problem. So I run around all day, and in my mind, I think I'm my body, or my body plus the personality. I am talking to my friends. I am dealing with my children. I have my problem with work. I have such and such an issue with my partner. All of it starts with the non-apprehension of myself as Brahman, as consciousness. Then the mind creates this imaginary self. We call it the jiva, the individuality, the transmigrating soul. I prefer to use the term jiva bhavana. Bhavana in Sanskrit means an attitude or a feeling. It's not just an idea. It's more akin to hypnotism. I'm in this trance-like state where I think I'm a person. Basically, I think I'm my body. And what Shankara is implying here is, in truth, that self is chaya. It's a shadow self. It's a phony self. It's a counterfeit self. Now, if in the waking state I close my eyes and I imagine I'm out sailing on San Francisco Bay, there's no problem. The imagination in and of itself is not problematic. It's only problematic when it's preceded by deep sleep. Then I think the imagination's real. Functioning in the world, what we call vyavahara, doing business, transactions. It's not problematic. It's only problematic when I forget who I am. Shankara says, take the time in the morning, early hours of the morning. Get quiet. And I remember, oh yeah, who I am is that grounded being, that chidakash, that space of pure awareness that nothing can touch. I am not this assemblage of matter, which exists like the dream body, the dream ego, the dream. Just like all the elements in the dream are nothing but imagination. Just as the snake in the rope is nothing but imagination. This jiva bhavana, this feeling that I'm a person, is something conjured up by the mind. Any thoughts or questions about this? Now, the corollary to this insight is ego always says, if I'm stuck in the dream, I think I need to resolve the problem of the dream. So when I'm dreaming I'm drowning in the bay, My mind says the solution is a life jacket or a life preserver or another boat coming along. Doesn't say wake up, because I do not know I am dreaming. Likewise, for the ego, I'm unhappy, I'm suffering, I'm not getting what I want, I'm annoyed, I'm angry. Ego always says, play whack-a-mole with the world. Yoga says, dude, you're dreaming, wake up. Any thoughts about this before we go on? Next one.
Rajjvajnanaat ksheneन yadvadrajjurhi sarpini bhati tadvachitti sakshat vishwakarena kevala. At the very instant of the ignorance of the rope, it appears as a snake too. As a snake, so too the pure and the changeless consciousness itself appears as the world of plurality because of ignorance.
Yes. So, just as when I do not apprehend the rope, it appears to be a snake, so too when I do not apprehend the ground of being, pure consciousness, when I do not understand the dream-like nature of phenomena, then the world of name and form, and most especially my identification with the body, seems real. Now, there's a practice implied. How does the king get rid of the snake? Does he call on a mongoose? Eat the cobra. Get the mongoose. He investigates. He has to have the courage to look down. So too, how do I get rid of the nasty old body? That's not the problem. How do I deal with my attachments? It's not the problem in the end. We have to have the courage to investigate, who am I? What is this world? Why doesn't the mind want to do that? First, if my ego disappears, I'll be nothing. That's right. It doesn't hurt. It's always humiliating, but it doesn't hurt. And everything I thought that was important, that brought me happiness and defined who I am, is seen to be empty. I have a dear friend, and I know him from the recovery community. He had a fabulous job in outside sales. He was making about $300,000 a year. Had a beautiful Victorian house in Alameda, had a husband, owned another apartment in Atlanta, had two boats, the big cabin cruiser and the little speedboat, two cars. One of them was a little Porsche Boxer. And then he relapsed and lost his job, lost the apartment in Atlanta, lost the husband, lost the house. I won't go into the whole story, but in a period of about 5 years, he had totally trashed his life. Got clean again, putting his life back together, does not want to go back into the corporate world. So rather than making $300,000 a year, he's making, right now, I think maybe 50 or 60. Hard to live in the Bay Area on that. But the frugality isn't what's afflicting him. It's just, he says, this is his language. I need a new narrative to define myself. What do I say to people when they ask me who I am? Because it used to be the house, the cars, the boats, etc. He was defined by his stuff and his actions. And the Lord has taken that away. Now, for a yogi, that's not problematic. Just stuff. This is the issue. What we have to do to have peace of mind, it's not about giving up enjoyment. It's about giving up our attachment to the enjoyment. And understanding, more I'm attached to the world, the less serenity I have. The more I can let go, be in surrender, be in acceptance, the more surrender I have, or more serenity I have. Call it the cosmic eater tower. Any questions about this? Such is the power of Maya. We hear this over and over and over again. We prove it over and over and over again. Then the student comes to me and says, "Oh, Jim, I'm so unhappy. This is what's wrong with my life. People aren't behaving." That's what it usually is. Such is the power of mind. It's powerful. Very powerful. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Upadanam prapanchasya brahmano anyanan vidyate tasmat sarva prapanchoyam brahmo vasti na chetarat. The substratum for the whole universe is nothing but Brahman. Therefore, the whole universe is Brahman and nothing else.
Yes. So just as your mind, your individual mind is the substratum for every element in the dream. There is no element in the dream that's other than your own mind. It is the fabric, it is the material cause the efficient cause, the instrumental cause, all the elements of the dream. Again, Vedanta becomes easy to understand if you go to the dream state. You are the God of your dream. So also Brahman. What is Brahman? Prajnanam Brahman. Brahman is consciousness. Is the substratum of the whole creation. And the names and forms are just superimpositions on it. Dhamma Satyam Jagan. Brahman alone is real, actually exists. Jagat, the phenomenal universe, the names and forms are illusions. They're superimpositions. They're a conditioned reality with a small r. Clay is what is. Bowl, vase, cup is simply clay put into a form. Never stops being clay. Right where the trouble seems to be, there God is. There's no place God is absent. What is God? Satchidananda. Existence, consciousness, bliss abs. Why is it so problematic? Because of ignorance and the subsequent superimposition, the notion that stuff is real. I think I'm a person, the world is separate from me, and I have to struggle. On those three ideas, everything is based. That is the mind. That is my ignorance. That is samsara. That is the wheel of karma. That's worldly existence. It goes by so many names. But it's those three ideas. And I think most of you have heard me use the metaphor. If you build a card castle, start with the three playing cards leaned up against each other, and then you try to see how tall you can build the tower. Did you ever do that as a kid?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the whole structure is based on those three cards. If you take one of the cards, whole thing falls. So I think my life is so complicated. I think the world is so complicated. But the whole structure of it is rooted in those three ideas. I think I'm a person. I think the world is separate from me, joy giving and misery producing. And in order to be happy, I have to struggle. I had a student say, "Oh, Vedanta is so complicated." I said, "No, it's not really. Indians like to make lists. That's part of the philosophical culture. So all these scriptures, you find all sorts of categories listed, which makes it appear like it's quite complicated. But it's not. It's very simple. It's yourself. If you forget who you are, then you think you're a person, then you have a goal, and you struggle, and the struggling hurts. Any thoughts on this? All right, next verse.
Vyapya vyapakata mithya sarvamatmeti shasanat iti gyate pare tattve bhedasya vasara kutaha. By the declaration of Shruti that everything is Atman, it is clear that the idea of pervading and pervaded is false. When the supreme reality is known thus, where is the room for differentiation?
So some scriptures, some commentaries say that the phenomenal world is real, but it's pervaded by consciousness. Those of us who've been raised Catholic, we get a similar idea. There's the bread and the wine. Well, the form is still bread and wine, but it's pervaded by Jesus. So, two things. What Shankar is saying here is no. If it exists, it's consciousness. If it's not consciousness, it doesn't really exist. Again, bring out the crystal ball. You see the images in the crystal ball. Are the images in the crystal ball pervaded by the stone? No. Stone's just the stone. I can't saw open the stone and pull out the images. If you look into the mirror, you see the image. Is the image in the mirror pervaded by the mirror? Not really. It's the mirror appearing as my face. I can't go and peel the image off the mirror. So this world is nothing but Brahman. Now, this is very subtle teaching. The next thing I'm going to say doesn't make sense, just put it on the shelf. It is the nature of consciousness to be self-evident. I always know that I'm me. I am I. That is the nature of consciousness. It is Swayambhu, Swayamjyoti, self-evident, self-luminous. Listen carefully. When I peep out of the senses and I'm looking at Susali over there, what is occurring is still the self-evidence of Brahman. One knowing is Brahman. That being known is Brahman. The Brahman never does. It's abide. It's Swajnana, self-knowledge. Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. All this is verily Brahma. The names and forms, Nitya, illusions. It's all God. It's all God. Sarvam Maya. Sarvam Maya. All is Maya. All is bliss. Next verse.
Shrutya nivaritam nunam nanatvam samukhena hi katham bhaso bhavedanyah sthite jadva yakarane. Shruti, by its own direct statements, has totally negated the multiplicity of the universe. When the non-dual cause is thus an established fact, how can there be anything appearing other than that?
So, as Shankara is always doing, he footnotes it by a quotation from scripture. I don't know if Swamiji has mentioned a particular Upanishad. It's probably something from Brihadaranyaka, or it might be from Chandogya, I'm not sure. But the point here that he's driving at, we know that in the world of cause and effect, the effect is only the cause in a different form. So you take an old broken golden bangle to the jewelry shop and you say, rather than just repair the gold bangle, would you make me a ring and 2 little gold stud earrings? The jeweler says, sure. So he melts down the gold, makes the new jewelry, calls you up and says, come back and get your jewelry. So you come back and you get a gold ring and you get silver ear studs. What would you do?
Go back.
Wait a minute. I gave you a gold bangle. How did I get silver ear studs? Well, gold turns into silver. You cheated me. So the effect is always the cause in a different form. If the cause is gold, whether it's bangle, finger ring, earrings, it's still gold with a different name and form. So if the cause is Brahma, the effect cannot be anything other than Brahma. What is Brahman Satchidananda? Yes. Well, Brahman appearing as Donald Trump is a jerk. No. Brahman appearing as Donald Trump is still Brahman. Brahman appearing as my boss is still Brahman. And it doesn't change its nature. If I cannot see it as Brahman, it's because of superimposition. So that's why I invite us to take on the practice. Right where the trouble seems to be, there God is. It's not God plus stupid people. It's not God plus something fearful. It's not God plus things not going my way. The effect is the cause in a different form. The cause does not change. Any thoughts on this? I was talking with a very dear friend who's studied modern metaphysics. He studied a lot of what we call science of mind, Ernest Holmes. And his take on it is, well, all that ever changes is our belief system. The material world is the material world. That's something separate and real and hard. You got to deal with the material world with the material stuff. That's fine. That's his belief. It's not what yoga says. Yoga says there is no material world. Looks material. Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. It's all Brahman. Which is more real? A good dream or a nightmare? Both are just imagination. That's the difference. That alone. Next verse.
Dosho api vihitah Shrutya mrityum sa gacchati iha pashyati nanatvam mayaya vanchito naraha. And also, the Shruti has pointed out the mistake of entertaining the idea of duality by saying that whatsoever deceived by Maya sees multiplicity here goes from death to death.
So the what's the word I want? The repercussions of my ignorance is I go from death to death. If you believe in the doctrine of incarnation, it means when this life is over, the subtle body is filled with the idea in some form. Well, that wasn't very hot. Maybe if I'd done it differently, it would be better. But the subtler meaning is this is what we do in our lives. This relationship isn't working. Maybe I need a new partner. This job isn't working. Maybe I need a new job. This house isn't working. Maybe I need a new house. I don't feel attractive. Maybe I need a new outfit. There's nothing wrong with any of these changes. But you get to decide whether or not this comes from a place of spiritual poverty. I feel there's not enough. Cosmic FOMO. fear of missing out. So for the woman of knowledge, she may do this, she may do that, but that comes from a place of expressiveness rather than neediness. Only you can be honest enough with yourself to figure that out. Nobody from the outside can make that determination for you. How do I know whether or not it's neediness or expressiveness? How do I feel about the outcome? The outcome where my attention, my attachment, my investment is probably coming from, and I'll be happy when it'll be better if so. Why am I doing that? Jiva Bhavana, I think I'm a person. There's a world of name and form separate from me. And Kartavya, obligatory actions. Happy when, it'll be better if, or better different. Gimme, 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 gimme. As I said earlier, Maya is powerful. It sure seems so effing real. Next verse. I think you're muted.
Sorry. Brahmana sarvabhutani jayante paramatmanaha tasmadetani brahmeva bhavantitya vadharayet. All beings are born of Brahman, the Supreme Self. Therefore, one should understand that they are essentially Brahman alone.
So, what appears as the beings of the world, not just the humans, but the elephants and the giraffes and the manatees and the otters, all of them are born of Brahman, meaning they are nothing but Leela, the Lord's divine play. Now, this word Leela in Sanskrit has a dual meaning, just like the word play does in Sanskrit. It can mean sport. Children are going to go out and play baseball. But it can also mean a theatrical presentation. I'm going to Berkeley Rep to see a play tonight. So it is Brahman that is sporting as this world. And it's Brahman that's masquerading, as it were. It's like an actor in a play. Monday night you play the hero, Tuesday night you play the villain. Play is over, you go backstage, take off your makeup and costume, and you're you. So also elephants and giraffes and tigers, what we would call virtuous and good people, what we would call villainous people, all just Leela. And the ground of being never changes. changes its nature. Now, our deep understanding of this allows us to accept life on life's terms. We don't have the fear that so many people run around. Oh my God, climate change. The world's going to be destroyed. Well, I have news for you. The world's going to be destroyed. It's a created form. It's a manifestation. Whether it happens in the next 20 years or the next 20 billion, I have no idea. The world will be destroyed. Oh, our democracy's in danger. Oh, I call it in danger, but it will end. Because it's a form. But you will not. Now, this doesn't mean to run into your bedroom and hide under the covers. No, live in the world. Live in the world. Experience it. But understand its fleeting nature. Understand that for each one of us, life is very short. And don't lose sight of the goal of life. The goal of life is to realize yourself. All the rest is just what the rest. Next verse. I think you're muted again.
Sorry. Rameva sarvanamani rupani vividhani cha karmani yapi samagrani vibhartirti shrutirjako. The Shruti declares that Brahman alone sustains different names and forms. All activities also are nothing but Brahman.
So here not only is the fabric, the material out of which the universe is made, but the agent is Brahman. This is an important idea to meditate on. Why do I get upset? I get upset frequently because I do not trust that God's in charge. God may be omnipotent, all-powerful, and omniscient and all-knowing, but I think he's an underachiever. And it would all be better if he did things my way. So I'm going to get in there and kind of help God out. One of my favorite examples of ego comes from the book The Little Prince. So he lands on the planet, and the fellow on the planet is the king of the universe. But he says he's a very wise king because he would never command a subject to do something he couldn't do. So every morning at dawn, he goes to the edge of his world and he commands the sun to rise. And in the evening, he goes to the other edge and he commands the sun to set. Of course, the sun obeys him. This is the foolishness and the vanity of ego. I do. Then he says, the little prince says, okay, after this conversation, well, it's time for me to go. And he's going to get this plane and fly off. And the king says, I command you to stay. And the little prince says, no, I'm going to go. And so the king says, all right, I command you to go. That's what our ego does. I will do this. I will make that. Not understanding that the agent is also as Ishvara, the cause, the generator of it all. Synchronous nature of everything. To go with the flow. To not do battle with the waves. It's all going to work out. Now, that infinite intelligence, that's the creative force in the universe, does manifest through you and me as our heart's deepest desires, the intuition. Our job is to silence what I call lately the inner 2-year-old. I want to have ice cream. No, I don't want to go to bed. That's the tyrannizing inner 2-year-old. If we can let go of that, then there's a sense of rightness, what Joseph Campbell used to say, follow your bliss and trust. An outcome we never know. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Suvarna jasamanasya Suvarna tvam cha shashvatam Brahmano jayamanasya Brahmatvam cha tatha bhavet. The only permanent factor in all the golden ornaments is gold. So too in all things and beings born of Brahman, the one permanent factor is their essential nature of Brahman.
Yes. One permanent actor or one permanent factor?
Factor with an F.
So we talked about this idea before. The idea that everything that's going on, every situation, every person, everything seems multiplicitous. But it's all Brahman. It's all going to work out. God's in charge. Take it easy. Do what's right in front of you. Ride the horse in the direction it's going. Float downstream in the river of life. So many metaphors. Go with the flow. You're God an underachiever? Do you have a little God that needs help? Do you have a dualistic divinity? Is there another force plus God, maybe evil, that's wreaking havoc in your world? Something left. The yogi has given up fighting anyone or anything. It's all going to work out. Next verse.
Swalpamapyantaram kritva jivatma paramatmano yo avidtishtiti murhatma bhayam tasya bhibhashitam. Due to ignorance, if a person entertains the least distinction between Jivatman, the individual self, and the Paramatman, the Supreme Self, then he is sure to be afflicted by fear.
Yes. So, Bhaya, fear, has as its cause, I'm not going to get what I want. I'm going to lose what I have. I'm not okay. My existence, my being, my self-esteem is threatened. So funny. I have yet to come across a Vedanta scripture that talks about our needs. We've got to get our needs met. Or my rights. I have a right to this, a right to feel that. Righteous indignation. Doesn't deal with that. What it says is krodha, anger, bhaya, fear, have as their cause. I forget who I am. And then the jiva bhavana seems real. And when I become identified with that, then all the afflictions seem important to me. Ego will always say, resolve the struggle of ego. Yoga always says, drop the struggle, drop the struggler. In West Side Story, one of the gang guys is all upset. And there's this wonderful song, lyrics go, boy, boy, crazy boy, stay cool, boy. We have the same language in Yoga Vasishtha. Shitala Manasaha. Coolness of mind. How do I get there? Koham. Who am I? What is this world? Next one.
Yatra jnana veda dvaita mitarastra pashyati atmatvevena yada sarvam netarastra charnavapi. When duality appears due to non-apprehension of reality, there one sees another. When everything is known as the self, there one does not perceive another in the least.
Yes. So, if duality is appearing, me plus stuff, that plus this, good, bad, hot, cold, pleasurable, unpleasurable, conducive, non-conducive. My way is the right way. Your way is the wrong way. Then I have trouble. If I can drop in the empty. Watch the world go by. That wonderful hymn of Shankara, the Brahma Jnanam Valley, Sangoham, Asangoham, Asangoham, Puna Punaha, Satchidananda Rupoham, Aham Nevaham Avyaya. Unattached, unattached, unattached am I again and again. I like that because we don't do it just once. Satchidananda Rupoham, my form is pure existence, pure consciousness. No sorrow touches me. I am that I am in you. And watch the light show. Okay, I think this is a good place to stop today. What verse are we on next week?
54.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om. Oh, that's it. Thank you all.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
Have a good Thanksgiving.
You too.
You too.
Hadi home.